What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Titus, and today I want to talk about something that I feel as though a trap that I've been falling into, and I want to talk about because I want to make a video talking about this for people so that they don't fall into the same trap that I do. Now, as we know, gacha games have lots of fun stuff and they have lots of not so fun stuff. Getting new champions, that's fun. Fighting dungeons and bosses and getting fat loot, that's great. Having to sit there and painstakingly gear up your champions in order to min-max their stats and make sure that they're 100% crit capped, and do I go for 2% more attack or 1% more crit damage? That's not fun, right? It's not. It's a necessary part of the game, and I cannot complain about that too much because that's how every single gacha game ever is. However, there was an interesting thing that I noticed that I don't know if I really spoke about when I did my things I like about Summoner's War and things I don't like. And that is, if you can guess it, let me know. It's on the screen now. Please bring in the polls. If you guessed the auto engrave system, you're absolutely correct. Ding, 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 we have a winner. So when I first jumped into this game and I realized that there was an auto engrave feature, I was ecstatic because basically when I'm playing Raid, I use a third-party site a lot of times to build out champions because it can be a bit of an annoying process that takes me away from the things that I really want to do in the game. So when I saw an auto engrave feature, I thought that it would work pretty much exactly like that, and I was ecstatic. However, there is some problems with the auto engrave feature, and there are some things I want to talk about to help other people. So basically, the way the auto engrave feature works, that I understand, is you hit auto engrave, and it's going to grab whatever pieces it thinks that is best from what you've got. And you can do some set settings. Wow, try that, saying that 5 times fast, to try to, you know, prioritize certain stats over others. Now, they also have, I'm guessing what this is like a community-based thing where it looks throughout the community and it sees what most people are building Tattoo in. And so a will set, a shield set, and a will set. There's will fight will, violent shield, there's all that good stuff, right? Now, I have absolutely been defaulting on this thing, this system, because it keeps the progression, especially in the early game, flowing and so smoothly, right? I don't have to stop and min-max a character, especially when you're new and you don't really know what characters want to be built certain ways, right? Coming from Raid, there is a general idea that I have because a lot of these games, I mean, spawning from Summoner's War, they follow a pretty much very similar formula, right? You want your damage dealers in damaging runes. You want your supports in tanky runes. You want speed on pretty much everybody you can get speed on, you know, stuff like that. This all translates from one game to another. Where it gets a little bit interesting is the fact that not really fully understanding which character wants to be a nuker more than anybody else, right? Some people, it's a bit evident. Obviously, Lapis wants to be a nuker, right? But then we have somebody like, well, I don't know. I guess you could take someone like Sath, right? Sath seems like he wants to be a nuker, but luckily for me, I know that a lot of times people with damage over times and damage over time explosions, you know, things that use up the damage over time, a lot of times they just want to be built tanky and fast so that they can cycle through, you know, with the accuracy, all that stuff, right? So what I noticed is I started defaulting down into auto engrave, and I was just doing that. And the thing is, early on, the game doesn't really punish you for doing that. So what ended up happening, my sort of coming to Jesus moment, was I've been working on Cairo's dungeon, and I have actually been able to clear the first abyss level. Now, I hit this after clearing it one time with this team right here. And then I immediately tried to do an auto battle. I tried to just do straight up 30 auto battles and I failed pretty much immediately. Now I'm looking at the team that I had built for that and I'm thinking to myself, well, I don't see what the problem is. These are all champions that people have recommended that I pick up to get through Abyss. And kind of after doing a little bit of research, a little bit of Googling, I realized that the auto engrave feature is not very good. And I also realized that having the auto engrave feature kind of built up, at least in me, a bit of a bad habit where, as we all know, gear cleansing, going through your gear, looking at, different pieces can take hours and it's not a fun process in the game, but it is a necessary process. And so the fact that the game right off the bat was willing to kind of delegate that elsewhere rather than me having to spend my time, I just kind of fell into that trap, right? A big problem, I think, with the auto engrave feature, and one thing I actually think that they could really make this a really, really, really nice system, is if we had something here where I could set values. And so, for instance, right now, Tashar, right? He is he's one of my big damage dealers getting through Abyss, but I'm sure, if you look at this and you look at his stat spread, I'm sure anybody who knows anything about gacha games can tell me right now what is a major problem Tashar has. If you guess the fact that he's not crit capped, absolutely. That is absolutely hurting Tashar's performance in the dungeon because he's not crit capped, so he's not getting all of those crits. So one thing I think could improve this system is if we had a button here where I could set certain values and then certain priority stats. And then one thing that I think really is to the detriment of the auto engrave feature is that it obsesses over sets. Now, as we know, sets are very important. However, especially when you're new, it's always stats over sets. Get the good stats first, worry about getting set bonuses later. So I definitely think that having a feature here, right, where I could come in and, choose certain values, much like the optimizer in Raid. And in fact, I'll show you guys that right now. All right, so as you can see here, we have the extractor up. Now, I'm going to be honest. This is a third-party thing. Raid does not do this, but it would be kind of nice if Raid did it too. Right, so when I have this optimizer open, I can click any of my champions. Let's just go ahead and click Martyr, right? As you can see, she's already got some gear, but it's pretty buns. Haven't used her in forever. Haven't even opened Raid in a while, and it's, oh man, what a surreal feeling to open that game up after a while. But as you can see here, I can go to, say, where is it? I think it is it the artifacts? Nope. Champions, yes. Okay. And where is it? I will say this is always the okay, here we go, right? The optimize button. Again, I have a new setup for the mic and the mic is literally sitting right in my eye line where the button would be for optimize. So still trying to get used to that, but we'll come over here and we'll hit optimize, right? And so I could click here, we'll do balanced, and then I can go stats, right? Now, the game doesn't even, the auto engrave feature doesn't even need to be as complicated as this is. It really doesn't, but it could just have something like this where I can set, so for instance, I need max 100 crit rate and minimum 100 crit rate. I don't want any more. I don't want any less. And in fact, I could probably get rid of the max just in case when there's pieces working out, if I'm like 2 or 3% over, not a huge deal, right? So I could do that. And that is the high, like as an attacker, that's his highest priority for Tashar, right? Then I could go, okay, what do we want? We want Crit damage is going to be our second priority, attack will be our third priority, and our fourth priority will be speed. And then the rest of it, you know, maybe accuracy. He does have some stuns and stuff like that. So we'll set this, right? And we just hit optimize and we'll hit start, right? And the game or this will just give me whatever the stat spread is. So we're done optimizing, we hit view, and now we have our stat spread, right? So this hits all the things we want. We hit 105% crit rate, not a huge deal. We're at 253% crit damage, almost 200 attack, you know, speed 208. This would be a decent stat spread for a nuker, right? And then of course, what else it does is I can come over here and I can click on these portraits, because as you can see, these pieces are already allocated to my to other champions, right? And I'm going to go ahead and click it and lock it, and then I'm going to clear it and I'm going to start again. And basically what that does is it doesn't count any pieces on a champion that's been locked, right? And so I come here again, and as you can see, it gives me a bunch of different stats. And if I wanted to, then I would just hit equip and it would equip this champion. I think just having something as simple as being able to set stat priorities, and maybe for certain stat or like certain values that I really need to cap out, like crit rate, I think having something like that would make this a much better system to, you know, kind of interact with, right? Doesn't have to be anything crazy, just something where it's not just trying to throw good stats and like decent stats and prioritizing sets, right? Because as we know, especially in the early game, sets don't really matter. And I think a big reason why that confuses me is because when you're really advanced into the game, you probably don't need the auto engrave feature, because you know so much about the game that you can, the process which you go through equipping champions, leveling up the runes is very streamlined, because you know exactly what you're looking for. The auto engrave feature to me seems like something that is geared for new players, but is also kind of a new player trap, I guess is the best way I could put it. Now, I know what some of you may be thinking. Well, it's bad, don't use it, stop being a noob. And that's true. But it's one of those things where a lot of new players, especially new players who are not making YouTube videos about their experiences, I feel as though the game is kind of setting them up to fail in a way. It's not 100%. It's more my fault than it would be somebody else's fault, because in my case, I am experienced with gacha games. I should know better. This is just me being just kind of being lazy. It's just me being lazy. I'm going to admit it. But for other players, this is one of those things where if, you've never played a gacha game, you hear a lot about Summoner's War. Maybe you caught one of my videos or one of some, the various other creators, and you thought, okay, I'm going to give this a try. You have absolutely no idea what you're going to be doing with champions, right? You're going to get a bunch of them right off the bat. You don't know who to level up. I mean, to be fair, the game gives you a lot of free stuff, and it also does have the features like the strategy features where, you look at this strategy deck and you go, okay, these champions are going to give me a winning team. Cool. I'm going to build them. Right. And so that's absolutely a good point. But again, you're going to come in and you don't know how to gear people. You're going to see the auto engrave feature, and I feel like it's going to set people up to develop bad habits, as it started to do with me. And again, for other people, it's less their fault than mine, because for me, it's just me being lazy, and I'll fully admit that, right? If I don't need to, especially at this point where I'm running this account, Element Fission, editing videos, making thumbnails, if I could delegate some of this time to other things and be kind of lazy, I'm gonna be kind of lazy. So, that's just, I don't think it would take too much work, but maybe I'm wrong because I'm not a developer. So, you know, a lot of this stuff goes right over my head, right? Much more intelligent people deal with this stuff, right? Gideon, I actually built specifically by myself. He's been a lot of fun, actually, right? I built him specifically. I actually took the time to sit down and actually build him out. But, you know, you're going to hit the auto engrave feature and it's going to set you up to fail. And I don't know that it would be that hard to maybe add a thing where you can set some values, you know, set some priorities on stats and just let it run for a second or two. And then, you know, even if they did something where maybe you get 5 tokens a day to use that feature, and if you want to use it more, you got to pay or something like that, right? Because that optimizer that I showed you guys, I actually do pay for. I pay, you know, to the Hell Hades site. I actually do pay for that feature. So, you know, it's just one of those things where, you know, it's right there, but in its current state, I don't think it's good. And I think it's going to set a lot of new players up to fail. But anyway, guys, let's go ahead and end the video off with a summoning. So we'll just go here. And do we have any scrolls? We have an LD scroll. We got 1 whole LD scroll. Let's get it. We got a light mystic witch. I think I already have a couple light mystic witches, or at least 1, right? I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I'll have to double check. You know, it's funny. Actually, off screen, just kind of as I was playing the game, was going through and I was pulling some scrolls and I actually pulled another Nat 5. Where is he? I pulled, he's a fire guy. Nat 5, where are we? Here we go. I pulled Steel Commander, I pulled Patrick. Oh, he's an Assassin's Creed character. Okay, cool. Yeah, I pulled Patrick. This is Patrick. So I thought that was funny. I've been extremely blessed and lucky with this account, if I'm being completely honest. So anyway, guys, that's all for that. Now, we do have a couple things in the works. 1, if you guys are into anime, we're thinking about launching a second channel where we predominantly talk about anime. So if that's something you're interested in, let me know in the comments below. We're also thinking about another series that kind of works alongside the Element Fission stuff and the Summoner's War stuff, where I go through and it's basically just, you know, I actually got the idea from a creator called Josh Strafe Hayes, who's very famous for his MMO series. And I was actually thinking about doing like a gacha series where I just go through and I find any gacha game, whether they be super popular, super obscure, and I try them out for a couple weeks. And then I give you guys a general rundown of what I think about the game. I thought that'd be interesting for content because, you know, I'm always thinking about making content, right? That's kind of what you do when you're a content creator. You're always thinking about it. And I kind of saw in my future a point where I'm constantly making, you know, guide videos or top 10 Nat 3s in Arena or top 5 non-LD teams to get you through Boxing Club or any of these things where it just starts to become very derivative and very, you know, been there, done that. And I really don't want to make that kind of content. And so I thought, hey, maybe I just try a bunch of gacha games over and over again, you know, until my eyes bleed or fall out of my skull or my brain, the fissures and I die, you know? So let me know what you think about that in the comments below. Not my brain fissuring, but the, you know, playing different gacha games and kind of showcasing them to you guys. Is that something you'd be interested in? Let me know. So, other than that, guys, that's been it for me. I've been Titus, and I'll catch you guys next time. Oh, yeah. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fancy YouTube stuff. I love you guys. I cannot express how much it means to me with how you guys have been helping the channel. Crazy. Next time.